Week 8 is here, and we're taking a look at the top running backs and wide receivers, helping you guys out to let you know who you need to be starting this week. And so Dave Kluge and I are going to go through our top running back and wide receiver rankings. We're going to break these down into tiers. Dave, for each of these positions, we have the top 37 players ranked. Who knows? We do this all the time where we might talk about a few extra ones. So we're going to give you guys at least 70 players here that we're going to be talking about. So this is a long video. Strap in, get ready for this episode. Dave, why don't we start off with the running backs? And I think you and I can do the same thing we did last week. It's super simple. Tier 1 of the running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane. There's no analysis needed. Everyone knows. Start these guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm looking
Super
at
simple.
we have our rankings are almost identical too. Like there's hardly any dissension here. Like this is the top 5. We got a few guys flip-flopped here and there, but yeah, this is the top 5. Just set it and forget.
Yeah, it's an easy one for that. Let's go down to the next tier where we can talk a little bit more about these guys. At 6, we've got Javonte Williams. 7, James Cook. 8, Derrick Henry. 9, Quinshon Judkins. 10, Saquon Barkley. And 11, Rachaad White. Now, Dave, I will say something here about Javonte Williams. I think some people might have questions. He's going up against the Browns defense here, and this is, it's, excuse me, not the Browns defense. I've definitely wrote the wrong notes here. Denver defense, thank you. It is a tough defense, at least when you look at the full season. But as of recent, they have not been as tough against running backs. So this is still a very just easy smash start spot for Javonte.
Yeah, and I also think that Javonte is just at the point that you're setting and forgetting him. Like we could probably push him up into that elite tier if we want to. He's the RB5 on the season right now. Now
Right.
with Miles Sanders out of the picture, I'm not especially concerned about Jaden Blue. He might come in for 2, 3, 4 touches here and there, but this is very clearly Javonte Williams' backfield. And I don't know if, like, as a collective, people have reshaped their perspective on Javonte Williams, who he is and what he's doing this year. I think there is still kind of this idea that he is like, this inefficient back who's just kind of this dead zone guy that's getting the work. That could not be further from the truth. Every single one of his efficiency metrics that I care about, yards after contact per attempt, broken tackle rate, missed tackles forced, breakaway run rate, they are all either better or at where they were pre-injury. And we got to remember, this guy coming into the league was one of the best running backs in football. Like we were talking about him as the number 2 overall dynasty running back. And then after that knee injury, his efficiency just plummeted and we kind of reshaped how we think about him. But he has been killing it right now. He's the lead back in one of the league's best offenses. This guy, I'd move mountains to trade for him if you can. I'm looking at him in the same respect that I'm looking at Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and these other guys that we've just been thinking about as set and forget running backs.
Quinshon Judkins is a guy in this tier that we have as our consensus running back 9. Dave, you have him as your running back 7. I have him as my running back 12. We both like him as an RB1 this week. I'm a little more cautious because I think there's a lot of hype coming off of this Dolphins game, 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't a particularly efficient game for him even there. He has the
Right.
one long run, and outside of that, it actually wasn't very good.
And the 3 touchdowns, which really
Right,
kind
like
of
that's what I started with.
skewed
Yeah,
his, yeah, yeah.
it's you have so much hype coming off of that. You go up against New England, who over the last 4 weeks has been the absolute best defense against fantasy running backs. I'm actually worried this might be one of those like disappointing starts. Like you still start him, but it might be a little more disappointing than you think.
Yeah, and I think that the volume is going to be there. I mean, this is another talented running back who is getting the workhorse role here, and I know it's not the best matchup, but I'm still not trying to overthink it here. I mean, I don't know many people that are sitting Quinshon Judkins this week. I think that, whether he's RB7 in rankings or RB12 in rankings, like we're still looking at him as a plug and play RB1. And I know like last week wasn't great, but this is still just a young, talented guy. The offensive line in Cleveland has looked a little bit better over the last handful of games than what we saw early in the year. And we just know the volume is going to be there. All it takes is breaking off one big run or getting in the end zone a couple of times like he did last week.
The other guy in this tier that I think is just starting to raise a lot of eyebrows as to what's the value of this player going forward. How do I need to treat him as a starter? Because Saquon Barkley was the guy that was a lot of people's number 1 overall draft pick or number 2, 3, whatever. But now we're at the point where it's like, I don't even know if week in, week out, he's going to be an RB1. He's our consensus running back 10 right now. I have him at running back 10. Dave, you have him at running back 9. Surprisingly not as easy matchup as we might have thought with the New York Giants. Looking back at last matchup against the Giants, we only got 12 carries, 58 yards, 2 receptions for Saquon Barkley. It wasn't the outing that we thought, or at least what we've had previously for him. It just seems like there's this kind of perfect storm of him not getting the volume we want to see and the lack of big plays that you've mentioned before.
Yeah, it's been really frustrating. I talked about it last week that he is last year he was averaging a breakaway run, 20 plus yards, once in every 22 carries, and he was averaging about 22 carries per game. So it was like once a game he was ripping off a 20 plus yarder, and a lot of those we remember going for 50, 60, 70 yards last year. This year he's had over 100 carries and hasn't logged a single breakaway run yet. I don't know if it's because he was on the Madden cover. I don't know if it's because he had, 600 whatever touches it was last year. I mean, whatever it was, he clearly just isn't the player he was previously. And now we're seeing Will Shipley healthy. We're seeing Tank Bigsby finally involved in the offense as well. You're still starting Saquon Barkley, but I think
Right.
people hoping that he would maintain what he did last year, it's not going to happen. He's kind of at that fringe low end RB1, high end RB2, but the upside is still there, especially against the Giants here. He's going to be a little bit more motivated in this game than he probably would be in the other games that he'll be playing against other opponents. So I still think you're starting him because the upside is that he could still punch in 3 touchdowns on any given week. But I think if you're hoping that he's going to, do what he did last year, we've seen enough through the first month and a half of this season. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we would have thought that, right? 2 weeks ago, Saquon against the Giants, and he gives you 6.7 half PPR points, and it's just disappointing.
And that was
I
in
think
New York too, where, he's probably a little bit more
all the
comfortable. Like that's where we
all the
really wanted to.
feels.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
Hmm.
it, it's been frustrating, but again, like frustrating because he's not living up to his draft day potential. Like you probably spent a top 5 pick on him, but it's not bad enough that you're thinking about benching him. Like the volume is still there. It's still Saquon Barkley. This is still a high scoring Eagles offense. You're still putting him in your lineup.
Yeah, is it weird to say though? I mean, you're still starting him, but is it weird to actually consider Saquon to be sort of matchup dependent in a way because you can sort of see what I mean by that is in a game like this where the game script, the Giants have proven that they can go out there and score points when they're in these games, even in what we thought was going to be a slog with them versus the Broncos. We get a high scoring game. This was also one of the first times that we saw the Eagles against the Giants go out and just pass the ball a ton. Um, I think you get worried that we just continue seeing a lot of this passing volume for this Eagles. They look different as an offense. It's not the same thing. I think we're hoping for some better passing volume for Saquon.
Yeah, last week was Jalen Hurts. He had the most passing yards in a game that he's had since the 2022 season. Like just a completely different look for the Eagles last week. But again, it's Saquon Barkley. It's the
Yeah.
Eagles offense. I feel like you got to put him in your lineup. But like if we're talking bigger picture here, like, looking for some trades and whatnot, I moved Javonte Williams ahead of Saquon Barkley in my rest of season rankings. Like if you can trade Saquon Barkley for Javonte Williams, that's a move that I would make at this point. And I wouldn't think twice about it. If you could move, Saquon Barkley for James Cook, Josh Jacobs. There's a handful of players that I think you might be able to pivot off of Saquon Barkley because of the name value and get guys who are just performing better right now.
Let's go down to the next tier. So tier number 3 is going to be running backs 12 through 20. At 12, Brees Hall. 13, Cam Scatterby. 14, Rico Dowdle. 15, DeAndre Swift. 16, J.K. Dobbins. 17, Jalen Warren. 18, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. 19, Chase Brown. And at 20, Alvin Kamara. Dave, let's start with Brees Hall because he's been a guy that has been talked about a lot as a potential trade prospect in the NFL, a trade prospect in fantasy football, and the Jets. We just okay, they're the Jets. We don't even know who's going to start this week because Aaron Glenn wants to keep his competitive advantage against the Bengals. Tyrod Taylor though does look like he has an injury, so we might get some more Justin Fields.
And
Did you?
Aaron Glenn did come out, and it sounds like he's kinda, like, backing up Justin Fields now, where, like, he was very I don't know the right word. I don't know. Did you see the clip where, like, they asked him about Woody Johnson's comments, and he was kinda like, "Well, that's
Yeah,
my decision to make." He's like, "That's not Woody Johnson's decision to make," and, like, "I still have faith in Justin." So, it does seem like Aaron Glenn is leaning towards Justin Fields a little bit more than, the immediate reaction was like, "Woody Johnson said this, Justin Fields' career is over," and Aaron Glenn's kinda saying like, "No, like, we still think Justin's the guy."
the vibes could not be worse. Like,
I know. It sucks too because I
why
like
get
Justin Fields. I like Aaron Glenn, but this is just a disaster happening so
like
far
they
this
don't
year.
all work in the same office.
Right.
Like
Right.
they can't just have like a simple sit down. Woody Johnson. I mean, the comments from Woody Johnson is just if our quarterback could complete a pass, it would look a lot better.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, man! Like
But then
that's
you also had Aaron Glenn and Justin Fields both did the like, "Ooh, like, I'm hearing about this for the first time. Let me give my
uh
off the
huh,
cuff comment." Like,
uh huh.
BS. Like, come on. There's no way you didn't hear about this before your press conference.
And honestly, a couple of weeks ago, we would have said this is the remedy. This could solve everything going up against the Bengals. But the Bengals have actually been. It actually still might solve things for Brees Hall,
Mhm.
uh, because for fantasy football, because the Bengals defense not great. They've been playing better, but still not great, especially the interior run defense. But now that the Bengals are scoring points, game script could be very different here, and Jets might have to pass the ball a lot more than they usually want to. Brees Hall, if Garrett Wilson is out, which we're not sure as of yet,
Seems like
uh,
it, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, Brees Hall could become a heavy target earner in this game.
And that's what we've seen is Justin Fields is much more willing to check down now than he was earlier in his career. So I think regardless of the game script, like if they're up, which I don't expect, we're probably going to see a lot of carries going Brees Hall's way. And if they're down, then we're going to see a lot of targets going Brees Hall's way. So he is pretty game script proof at this point. And what I will say as well, I know there's like a lot of buzz about Justin Fields right now. If he is named the starter, I think people are going to be like scared of Justin Fields for whatever reason. I'm going to rank him as a QB1. Like you said, like this Cincinnati defense can hang points. And this might be one of those situations where, like Justin Fields, like he does so often, goes into the third quarter with, 3, 4 fantasy points and then finishes with 30. Like this does feel like a garbage time opportunity for Justin Fields. So I know there's a lot of concerns right now, but at the end of the day, Justin Fields still runs the ball a lot. This is a game script that could work in his favor. I know we're talking about running backs and wide receivers today, but Justin Fields, if he's named the starter, I'll have him inside my top 12 this week.
Rico Dowdle is another name that's in this tier that I want to talk about because there was a lot of confusion last week going in, like who's going to be the starter, who's going to get the majority of the carries for the Panthers. Turns out it's still Rico. He looks like he is the very definitive 1A. Like 1A is just kind of the loose term I'm going to use here, but going up against the Bills, this is a good matchup for him. It really all depends because so many of the yards that the Bills have given up have been on two monster performances, one to Bijan Robinson,
Mhm.
one to Derrick Henry. And then everything else has kind of just been a little meh. Like you get a Devon Achan receiving PPR scam in there. But other than that, like, yeah, the Bills defense is beatable. Their run defense is beatable, but teams haven't been able to just slow the game down and run against the Bills. They're always having to pass. So if Rico can stay involved in the passing game, I think there's a chance for a blow up game here.
Yeah, and it feels like last week Chuba Hubbard's usage was a little bit like ceremonious. Like, yeah, you're a
Hmm.
team captain. We don't want to like take your spot from you, but like whether you're looking at the advanced efficiency metrics, whether you're just looking at like the raw yards per touch, whether you're watching the film, or even if you're just like not a film grinder and you were just watching the game on TV, Rico Dowdle is clearly just a much, much better running back right now. And maybe that is because Chuba Hubbard is coming back from his injury, but like Chuba Hubbard, this is just the life of a day three running back. Like if you're thrust into a role with a lot of volume, you can be productive. And we saw that last year, it was a tough year and Chuba Hubbard was able to grind out yards behind this offensive line. But Rico Dowdle just adds a dynamic element to this offense that we haven't seen from Chuba Hubbard throughout his entire career. So I think that we're going to see that. Last week it was like a 55-45 split, probably more of like a 60-40 this week. And my guess is by the end of the year, it's going to be like a 70-30, 80-20 split in Dowdle's favor because he's just the clear better back.
Really quick on a couple of running backs here before, because I really want to talk about Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Chase Brown, and Alvin Kamara, because these are some guys that arrows have been pointing in all different directions. But really quick, DeAndre Swift against the Ravens. It's a blitz heavy defense. You can see a lot of checkdowns for Swift here. J.K. Dobbins, it's a run funnel against the Cowboys. That's easy. Jalen Warren is just getting the volume we love to see, and he still gets involved in the passing game, so that works against the Packers. But Dave, Corey Krosky Merritt here. This is the one you have him ranked quite a bit higher than I do. Just double checking here. Yeah, you've got him at running back 13. I've got him at running back 22. So what keeps you higher on Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt? Because I'm looking at this game. There's the limited passing role. You've got Marcus Mariota going up against the Chiefs. I'm a little worried that he gets written out due to the game script here.
Yeah, full disclosure, that was just an oversight on my part. I forgot that Marcus Mariota was starting. I did these
Oh,
rankings
this is
earlier
awkward.
in the week. Yeah, yeah. So sorry about that. I did these rankings earlier in the week, thinking that maybe Jaden Daniels would be able to play. Did a last pass late last night with Marcus Mariota in at quarterback, and still, I've got him at or running back 18. So I'm still looking at him as an RB2, somebody that you want to get in your lineups. But yeah, tempering expectations a little bit. We've seen Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt's best games have come when he's playing alongside a healthy Jaden Daniels, with Marcus Mariota out there tempering expectations a little bit, but
Okay.
still a volume-based RB2.
Okay, yeah. So that's about where I have him. Then Chase Brown, I think, becomes probably the most interesting running back to talk about in this whole tier
Mhm.
because going up against the Jets, I mean, this could actually be one of these game scripts where the Bengals get ahead early and just try to run out the clock. But we saw how easy they were able to score last week against the Steelers, a better defense. I mean, if we get a positive game script here for Chase Brown, we could finally be looking at a season high in carries potentially, goal line chances, all the things that we have wanted for Chase Brown. We started to see some of the explosive runs last week. Um, is there a small chance Chase Brown actually finishes as an RB1 this week?
RB1, I think that's pretty tough to get there, just
Okay.
because now we're seeing Samaje Perine is a little bit involved. He's going to get 30 to 40% of the touches. And that was my big concern early in the offseason with Chase Brown is like, I just did like some very rudimentary math where I'm like, okay, Chase Brown on 96% of the opportunities was averaging like 18 points per game. If we cut that down to 70% of the opportunities, then all of a sudden that pushes him like outside of RB2 status. I think that's kind of where we are now. I think there's going to be enough volume and enough pass catching that he's still going to be a guy that you can look at as an RB2. But I think that ceiling that we had hoped for, that he'd be a top 5 guy or an RB10, I think
Yeah.
that's gone at this point. And he will have those weeks where he scores twice, or he's got the game breaking athleticism where he can rip off an 80-yard play. And when he does that, he can kind of squeak in as an RB1. But I don't think that's ever the expectation. If he ever finishes an RB1, it's going to be because variance broke in his direction. He had a big play or he had a couple scores.
Let's go down to the next tier here. This is going to be tier number 4.
I want to
We're going to
Alvin
start.
Kamara real
Yeah,
quickly. We did kind of
sure.
gloss over him. He's a guy that I don't want to say like aggressive on, but there were a lot of concerns with Alvin Kamara over the last few weeks. And I think with Kendre Miller out for the year now, we're going to be looking at a different Alvin Kamara. I don't think Devin Neal is going to be that involved. We talked about him on the waiver show as an injury away guy to stash, but they haven't had any faith in Devin Neal. Like he wasn't even getting on the field when Kendre Miller was healthy. I don't think that we're going to see him just step in and do what Kendre Miller was doing, getting 30-40% of the backfield touches. So I think there's kind of this feeling that Alvin Kamara, I don't want to say washed, but like people haven't felt good about Alvin Kamara in their lineups. This is a week, we've seen him have some huge weeks over his career against Tampa Bay. This is one where I do feel a little bit better about Alvin Kamara than I have over the last month.
Yeah, I'm sort of the other way. Um, he's sort of just like the PPR scam where it's like we've got him at running back 20, and that's on like a lot of bye weeks.
Mhm.
We're probably looking at him as a fringe RB2, RB3 rest of the way. I mean, not that I don't want to say like we have seen what the Saints are going to do, but the fact that Taysom Hill is back to getting goal line work. Um, Devin Neal was actually throwing in some really nice pass blocking reps last week. Where there's times where even in a passing situation, what if Kamara comes off the field? Like it's just I don't have a lot of faith right now that Kamara is running the ball well enough or going to get the goal line opportunities. And the passing game is still there, but I don't know that it's enough. Like I'm still starting him if that makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
he's always going to be that fringe RB2, RB3 guy for me.
I think the saving grace here is Tampa Bay has given up more receiving yards to running backs than
Yeah.
any other team in the NFL. So I think that's the hope here is that this game script will work in a favor where they have to pass the ball a lot. And I still think Alvin Kamara, even if Devin Neal had some nice pass blocking reps, I think if they want a guy out there catching the ball in passing down situations, it's probably still going to be Alvin Kamara. So I'm still looking at him as an RB2, but feeling a little bit warmer about Alvin Kamara than I have.
The Saints Bucks game is like a sneaky ugly game, I
Yeah.
think. With no Mike Evans, potentially no Chris Godwin, it could
Buka's
get
still
ugly.
hurt. I mean, like he's playing, which is awesome, but like Buka clearly wasn't himself last week.
No, no, it could get one of those like ugly games, low
Hmm.
scoring, surprisingly. Okay, let's go down into tier 4. This is running backs 21 through 27. Isaiah Pacheco is at running back 21. At 22, we've got Jordan Mason. 23, Ramondre Stevenson. 24, Kamani Vidal. 25, Tony Pollard. 26, Tajay Spears. And 27, Woody Marks. Dave, Isaiah Pacheco is probably one of the guys that's going to have the most start sit questions. I think actually the next 3 or 4 of these guys, it's Isaiah Pacheco, Jordan Mason, Ramondre Stevenson, and Kamani Vidal. We have them ranked in that exact order. Is there a guy out of those 4 that sticks out to you as, man, if I have him on this, actually, why don't you put them? What's you have your rankings here? What would be your ranking if you had all 4 of these players on your team and you need to pick 2 to be in your starting lineup?
That's the exact order I have them in, and I don't even
Okay.
have anybody else there. Like, it's for me in my
Oh, you
rankings,
actually, I'm looking, you
Pacheco.
have them sequentially
I
in
know.
that order. Like there's no gaps, nothing.
Yeah, Pacheco, Mason, Stevenson, Vidal is how I prefer it. Um, and I don't feel good about any of these guys. Like, this is where we hit that tier where there's like a big fall off. And I know there's going to be a lot of start sit questions about these guys, and you might be looking at wide receivers over some of these guys in your flex spot if you've got 2 good running backs. But Isaiah Pacheco, we've started to see him look a little bit like his older self. Kareem Hunt, we don't know exactly what's going on with him, but he picked up that injury last week, came back in the game, and then immediately left the game. So we don't know if he's at 100%. I do have some concerns about Brashard Smith there, but this does feel like a Jaden Daniels list team, gives them an opportunity to lean on the run a little bit, get Isaiah Pacheco going. So I think that makes sense there. Jordan Mason, this is a tough matchup, and we haven't really seen him look quite as good as he did. I'm trying to remember who that first game was. The first game without Aaron Jones. I remember it was a smash matchup. Maybe it was even Miami. I can't remember, but he had that one game where he just
Oh, let me go
feasted, and
back.
like that's what we expected. And since then, Jordan Mason has
It was
been.
Cincy. I'm pretty
That's
sure it
right.
was
Yeah.
Cincy that he played.
Yeah. That's right. And he smashed, and we expected him to in that game, but has been, touchdown or bust since then. And then Ramondre Stevenson, I don't know, man. I might be the idiot here. I see that I am like way higher on Travion Henderson than you. I'm trying not to take too much away from last week. I think maybe Travion Henderson is a little bit more involved. Like, I don't think that they want to phase him out completely. I think they were probably trying to send some sort of message last week, but I'd be shocked if Travion Henderson comes out here this week and just gets 2 touches again.
Yeah, and I don't think he gets 2 touches again, right? But like it's not enough. Even if he does get his 8, 9 touches, you're hoping for some sort of a big play. I'm
Right.
looking right now, last 3 weeks has not even been within the top 40 of
Right.
running backs. Like
Yeah.
it's one of these things where, and I have him at running back 39 still.
Mhm.
So I would think comparatively to performance and consensus, I'm actually pretty high on Trevion. Everything from talent and the way I look at him makes me want to say kid's still really good at football and he
Right.
should be playing more. And everything tells me like just keep starting him and keep playing him as your flex and something will happen. And I think I'm at that breaking point where I'm just like I can't do it even in these tough bye weeks. Can't do it.
And the
Uh
weirdest thing is, like, they're saying that his lack of playing is because of his pass protection. He was, like, the
Wild.
best pass
Wild.
blocking running back in college football last year. Like, that is one of the reasons we expected him to be drafted as high as he was, is because he was a phenomenal pass blocker at Ohio State. And now, like, you can look at PFF grades. Like, PFF grades from last year had him graded as one of the best pass blocking running backs. And now this year, he's graded as one of the worst pass blocking running backs. And I get it. Like, there's different blitz schemes and, like, they throw some complex things at running backs here. But at the end of the day, like, we don't see this often that somebody who is like really good at one thing in college comes into the NFL and is like terrible at it. There's something weird going on here.
I was gonna say, I wonder how much of it is too is like college. They're gonna simplify everything, right?
Yeah.
You know what your blitz assignment pickup is every single time. It's super simple. They want to keep it easy for these guys. And in the NFL, I mean, like you mentioned, the schemes get so much harder to recognize, and you'll have defensive fronts pulling stunts where you don't know where guys are coming from. And we see this often with rookie running backs, as it takes them time to get used to simply running the football. Now let's get them used to trying to do one of the toughest things, which is pass block in open space. Like it's impossible, especially against NFL defensive fronts like this. So, yeah, I mean, it's surprising that we're seeing this kind of struggle from him.
And
But
like if he was coming out of the MAC or something, I'd get it. Like if he was coming out of the Mountain West, I'd get it. But like he was playing against a lot of NFL talent. Like this is a
mm-hmm,
Big Ten running back who like
mm-hmm.
was seeing some of that stuff in college too. Just a really weird situation. Like I'm still keeping a light on for Travion because I think he's a good player. I think a lot of this is just that old school coaching, Vrabel, McDaniels, cut from that Belichick cloth. Like I think that they want to like coach these young guys hard and get the best out of them, and like super frustrating for fantasy managers. But I am not willing to say yet that like Travion Henderson is a bust or not good at football because we just saw way too much at Ohio State that something isn't adding up with what's going on this year.
You and I both have Kimani Vidal as our running back 24, making him the consensus running back 24 in our rankings. Is he the last running back on this list that you actually want to start? Because there are guys like Tony Pollard and Woody Marks and Chuba Hubbard, Tyler Algier that come right after that. I don't know you want to start any of them. I don't know that you want to start Kimani Vidal.
Yeah, and I think like Kamani Vidal, the workload is probably going to be there, and that's why he kind of falls in as like the last of the RB2s at RB24 for us. But I could make an argument for some of the guys that I have ranked behind him: Tajay Spears, Travion Henderson, Woody Marks, Tony Pollard, having higher ceilings. I think with Kamani Vidal, though, we've seen that he is kind of the lead guy here. I do wonder. It looks like Joe Alt should be back this week, which is obviously good for the offensive line. But I do wonder with how much they blitz. We know Kamani Vidal is a pretty good pass blocker. I wonder if they ask him to just like stay in and pick up a lot of blitzes. Talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but the Chargers are one of the few teams that will run these plays without tight ends, so they don't get that extra chip blocker when they just have the five guys up front, and they do rely on the running backs to block a little bit more. So I think that might be my fear here, is that he is, staying in and blocking a lot more than he is running routes, but the volume is going to be there at the end of the day. I think he has like a higher median range of outcomes than a lot of the guys that are ranked behind him, but I do think his ceiling is limited in this matchup.
One of the best defensive performers for Minnesota Vikings, Andrew Van Ginkel, who not known to be the run stopper. He's a great off the edge player, creates some big plays. He will be out
Mhm.
for the Thursday night matchup for the Vikings. And that's one of the things that I will say is like when the Vikings have been bitten by the injury bug, they have been susceptible to some big plays, whether that be in the secondary or with the running backs. They've been a very, very inconsistent defense, going from shutting down Saquon Barkley to giving up the world to Quinshawn Judkins to, just you can go through the list here. Like Kenneth Gainwell had a 99-yard rushing game against the Vikings on 14 carries. It's just the defense has been inconsistent. I think if and when you are starting Kamani Vidal, it is with the understanding of the volatility that you might get. This is one of these where you're hoping there's touchdowns, there's receptions. It's a good Chargers offense with Justin Herbert.
I'm almost at the point where I just want to start like filtering out the international games entirely from these samples, because like those get so wonky every single
Mm-hmm.
time. And like, yeah, we saw Kenneth Gainwell like ate this defense alive in that weird London game, but like Kenneth Gainwell hasn't done anything really for the rest of the season outside of that one game.
Yeah, well, that was his big starting game, right?
Right.
Like coming out, so like little more volume there.
Definitely
Quinn,
skews the numbers though.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay. Anyone else from this tier that stands out to you? You want to jump down to our next tier?
Woody Marks is just like an interesting guy that I think is worth talking about. I believe, I'm trying to look right now, I think you and I both have Woody Marks ahead of Nick Chubb. And
Yes.
like he clearly has more juice, however you want to define that. Like even my wife, like we were watching the game and like Nick Chubb just kind of like plotting his way to 2, 3 yards, and then Woody Marks comes in and it's just like he's shot out of a cannon comparatively. He still has a lot of like technical things that he needs to refine. Like his footwork isn't good. He's just like a young guy that wants to just like go, go, go. And that's not always what you want to see from an NFL running back. But um, I don't know exactly. I just kind of, I guess, want to talk through this Houston backfield a little bit, because we have seen a frustrating split. We saw like the big Woody Marks breakout a few weeks ago. Then we saw Nick Chubb as the lead guy, and then we saw kind of a split last week where Woody Marks just looked like the better guy. I'm looking at this matchup against San Francisco, and it is a very tough matchup. I could see this going either way. Like they might want to just try to get outside with Woody Marks as much as possible. They might just want to like beat up on this banged up 49ers defense by just plowing Nick Chubb through the middle. I don't really have a good read on this game, and I think we're both opting for Woody Marks just because he looks a little bit better right now. But I could see this one being like a trap game where you're starting Woody Marks or Nick Chubb and getting like 2 points from either of these guys. And I think there's a lot of fear in both of those running backs.
Yeah, I think the only first of all, I don't want any part of any Texans player if we're just going to be real. There,
Yeah,
you're
especially
starting
if
them out
Nico
of
Collins is out. Yeah.
you're starting them out of sheer desperation. I think the only kind of saving grace that I'd have for even putting Woody Marks ahead of Nick Chubb in rankings is that I think the Texans will be forced to pass more. I think that this Niners pass rush can get to CJ Stroud. Pretty much a Girl Scout troop could get to CJ Stroud at this point. Like there's no blocking for him up front. And without Nico Collins, if he's not in for this game, they're going to need to get the ball out quick and find ways to get the ball into people's hands creatively, whether it's Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, if Christian Kirk is back healthy. Woody Marks, I think, becomes a very interesting guy because the Niners can be beaten through the air with running backs, and that's kind of the only saving grace that I have here. But I don't want to start these guys if I don't have to. I actually have, if I'm, yeah, I actually have Tyler Algier ahead of Woody Marks. I will take the Falcons running back 2 against Miami over either of the Houston Texans starting running back this week.
Probably not a bad call. Yeah, I might be making that switch myself here.
All right, let's jump down to the final tier for the running backs. This is running backs 28 through 37. Dave, I'm proud of us because we are going much faster than we did last week. Number 28, running back Tyler Algier. 29, Chuba Hubbard. 30, Nick Chubb. 31, Trevion Henderson. 32, Kenneth Gainwell. 33, RJ Harvey. 34, Brashard Smith. 35, Tyrone Tracy. 36, Kyle Monangai. And 37, Isaiah Davis. Now, we've already mentioned a couple of these guys' names, so I don't think we need to like double down on them. We've already talked about Algier, Hubbard, Chubb, Henderson, Gainwell. I think we know what he is, and I think you could probably say the same thing about RJ Harvey to an extent, Dave. Like it feels like Gainwell, Harvey, Smith are all sort of the same dude. You're expecting a handful of touches, a handful of targets. Let's see what happens. The only, I think, saving grace I have for RJ Harvey this week is a potential shootout against Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's the hope with Harvey, and I think Tyrone Tracy is kind of the interesting guy here because we saw, when they played 2 weeks ago against Philadelphia, it was his first game back after missing a handful of games with that shoulder injury, and he got almost no touches, and that was like the big Cam Scatterboot breakout game where we saw the 3 touchdowns. We saw him just like mauling this Philadelphia defense. I've got to imagine they've got a better game plan to stop Cam Scatterboot this time around. We did see Tyrone Tracy involved last week. He had that big run up the middle for a touchdown. We see him a little bit more removed from that shoulder injury now.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
a guy
going to
that
move
I'm saying
Tyrone
like,
Tracy up. Like
yeah,
as you're saying that, I'm sitting here going, I've got him way too. Like I need to have Tyrone Tracy. I would think I need to have him. I actually think I need to have him higher than you have him right now too. Like I want to go put Tyrone Tracy ahead of Brashard Smith and Nick Chubb and Kyle Monangai and some of these.
and I think that's it. This is the Eagles playing at home. They should have a better showing than they had on that short matchup on a Thursday night where I think they kind of got just like almost sucker punched by the Giants. Like they did not expect that to happen. And then they were just like scrambling from behind the entire
They're
game.
going to come into this game pissed.
That's
Like
kind of
just
what I'm thinking here. And I think that, we know Cam Scatterboot could catch the ball, but if this does, really just get out of hand early, which is how the Vegas books are kind of looking at this one, I could see them forced in a position where we see a little bit more Tyrone Tracy. And we know that these negative game scripts where they're forced to pass the ball a lot can work in his favor. So Tyrone Tracy, we're both ranking him as an RB3, but I think when you're looking at upside, which is, I think, like the number one thing you're looking for in this tier, I think that there's a lot of upside with Tyrone Tracy this week.
Yeah, we're going to have him a little lower on these tiers, but I think you're right. I think I'll be moving him up quite a bit and have him on that fringe where you're looking at him. I don't want to say RB2 just yet, but I think you're looking at him
Right.
as like the high end RB3 with
Right.
some upside in a potential shootout there. All right, Dave, 37 running backs. Let's move on to wide receivers
In
where
37 minutes too, look at that. Well, we got the
that's
cold
weird.
open a few minutes
Yeah,
there, but
yeah.
yeah, that's a
We're
good pace right there.
efficient. Efficient is what we are. Let's go into the wide receivers here. But we've got 37 wide receivers. Get ready. Tier number 1, wide receivers 1 through 5, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Rashee Rice, and Justin Jefferson. Nothing needs to be said here. The faith is restored in the Bengals offense and Jamar Chase. Faith is restored in CeeDee Lamb. Drake London gives me pause because we still don't quite know what the Falcons are back and forth. They're a very inconsistent team when Darnell Mooney's in the field, when Kyle Pitts is getting his targets. The offense just seems different. They're so much better when they run through Drake London. That's my only small fear is that Drake London gets schemed out of this game because the Falcons get such a big lead ahead of the Dolphins. But it also could just be because Drake London gets himself 2 touchdowns early and we're looking at a huge blow-up game.
And that's something that Jeff talked about, Jeff Bell, when we were doing the Dynasty show earlier this week, that there have been so many games this year where there are just like fake NFL teams. And I'm sorry, Alfredo, but like the Dolphins right now are like a fake
No,
NFL team.
it's, yeah.
And and what we're seeing is like they're just getting beaten so badly that like by halftime the game is just like over. And like this could be one of those games where like the Falcons are just like, you know, kind of almost kneeing it out, coming out after halftime, and like just running the ball to Tyler Algier, and we might see that where like Drake London could have 80 yards and a touchdown going into halftime, and you're like, this is going to be the huge blow up game, and then he finishes the game with 80 yards and a touchdown because it just gets
Mhm.
that out of hand that quickly.
Exactly that.
And I think that's the fear with Drake London, and I think a lot of people, like, when you're looking at these, it might be kind of, like, shocking to see Drake London at wide receiver 3 and Rashee Rice at wide receiver 4, but we gotta remember this is a week where Amon St. Brown is on bye, Brian Thomas Jr. is on bye, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams are on bye, Jackson Smith-Njigba is on bye, so there's a lot of guys that probably would be ahead some of these names if we didn't have all of these big name receivers on bye. So yeah, these guys probably feel more like middling to low end wide receiver ones, but with a lot of elite guys on bye this week, they just nominally get moved up into that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 spot.
It's funny, Miami is actually allowing the 5th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks because teams simply don't have to
Right.
pass. They just get ahead early. You also get the everything gets a little skewed from that Cleveland game. Yeah, just ugly stuff.
These guys are all
Let's
set and forget wide receiver ones, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we can cut it out. We can move on. Tier number 2 here, wide receivers 6 through 12. These are also players that are in the wide receiver 1 range. So these are simple, easy, start them no matter what. Roma Dunze, AJ Brown, Cortland Sutton, Emeka Ibuka. We ranked Nico Collins as if he will be active, and that we do not know yet. So that is the reasoning for the ranking so high here at wide receiver 10. And then DK Metcalf, Chris Olave. Dave, who stands out to you most from this that maybe gives you the most pause? Let's remove Nico Collins from the situation because of the injury. Is there anyone on this list that gives you even like a little bit of pause?
Cortland Sutton, like, he has been so hot and cold this week, like, or this year. Like, there are some times that it's just like Cortland Sutton, standout wide receiver 1. He's getting all the targets.
Mhm.
He's getting big plays. He's scoring touchdowns. And then we've seen 2 games this year that he's just been like completely phased out of, which is really bizarre to see. And one of those games was against the Jets. And, we know Sauce Gardner is going to do his thing, kind of taking players out of matchups. But it's just been a weird year for Cortland Sutton so far. And again, there's so many big names on bye this week that he is the guy that just kind of naturally moves up in those rankings. But definitely the steepest, lowest floor of all the guys that we have in the top 12.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. Like that's the one I have him ranked a little bit higher. Um, just simply because of the upside. But I think that he is one of these guys that are completely interchangeable from where I have him at wide receiver 7, where I could have ranked him at wide receiver 14 and it would have made absolutely no difference to me. Like they're
Yeah.
all within that same realm. That's a
All
tough
the way
part with
down to like wide
rankings.
receiver 20. Like, I feel like these next two
Yeah.
tiers, we could have almost smashed together into like one big tier.
Yeah, I'm looking. My wide receiver 20 is Keenan Allen. It is
Yeah.
extremely possible Keenan Allen has a much better game than Cortland Sutton. Like that's
Right.
wouldn't even phase me one bit
And
to
same thing,
think of
like,
that.
I'm looking at this right now. Like, we've got Cortland Sutton at wide receiver 8. We've got Michael Pittman Jr. at wide receiver 19. And they kind of feel like very similar plays this week.
Yeah, like I mean, looking through a bunch of them: T. Higgins, George Pickens, Tedero McMillan, Keenan Allen, like all these guys. It's weird to get that deep into the rankings and be like, yeah, they're all pretty much starts. Like, I guess that's one of the things that comes with a bye week, right? Is just the field has narrowed down. It's a little more condensed, where you could say like, yeah, start the good players. Pretty
Yeah.
much it.
I
No
mean, Chris
overthinking on
Harris,
that.
our friend Chris Harris, he always talks about like the wide receiver 3 and the infinite sadness that, like, once you get to
Hmm.
wide receiver 3 range from like there, like all the way through the end of rankings, it's just sadness and downside. And I feel like it's not even like the wide receiver 3 onward anymore. It's like once you get outside of that top 12, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, like, it feels like there's like a very clear cut top 12, like guys that you feel really good about on a week in, week out basis. And then everybody after that has been pretty boom or bust this year.
Well, let's go out of the top 12 and let's see how we feel as we get closer to the infinite sadness. Wide receivers 13 through 20. At 13, we got Lad McConkey. 14, Tedero McMillan. 15, Zay Flowers. 16, Quentin Johnston. 17, George Pickens. 18, Jalen Waddle. 19, Michael Pittman Jr. And at 20, Keenan Allen.
I love we don't know what the hell to do with these Chargers receivers, so we're just going to throw them all in one tier together and hope for the
Yep.
best.
Yep. Basically, I'm doing this. Like, I'm just going with who's been hot. Lad McConkey's been hot lately.
Yep.
I know that the Vikings can be a tough defense, but like I mentioned, they're also pretty inconsistent. They are susceptible versus slot receivers. That's been an issue of Brian Flores' defense for a while. It's simply because of the way that he sends blitz packages. So I do think that there is a thing here where if you had any worry about Lad McConkey or Keenan Allen, I think you can start them easily. I will say, Dave, like I know you're higher on Quentin Johnson than I am. He's the one guy like gives me a little bit of pause, but I think you're still starting him in this matchup. You have to.
Yeah, and we saw like last week was down production wise, and he's coming back from an injury, but like I'm looking pre-injury, 7 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 13 targets, and then the 2 games since he's been back from injury, 4 targets and 6 targets. I know a lot of people are going to point to that and just say, well, that's what Quentin Johnson has done his entire career. Again, like I'm very much so of the, I want to give grace to players who are returning from injury. And I think that's what we're seeing right now is that he hasn't been 100%. So we know he's still got the huge play upside. All it takes is 1 target for him to, get 60 yards and a touchdown and make a week right there. I expect the target total to go up a little bit in this game as well. And when I look at Minnesota, they're going to want to throw the ball quick and get the ball out of their hands quickly. And all 3 of these receivers can do that. So whether it's, Quentin Johnson making big plays after the catch, Lad McConkey just getting the little screens and slants, or Keenan Allen just being that underneath guy, like I think there's going to be a lot of pass volume in this offense. And that's why I feel pretty comfortable getting all of these guys inside my top 24.
Oh man, there was a great stat, and I'm butchering it right now, but I'm gonna find it right here because there's a great stat from Kyle Borgognoni over at the Fantasy Footballers. He loves to throw out some really fun stats on Twitter, but it's about Justin Herbert, who I am pulling it up as we speak.
I like the
Dave,
filibuster as you're looking up.
yep,
Yeah.
I'm really going for it, Dave. Help me out
What
here,
do I want to talk
please.
about this morning? The beautiful, I don't know, the blue skies out here in Colorado. What do I need to just ramble on and on about?
Never mind. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We have never had an NFL quarterback with 4,600 plus passing yards, 32 plus passing touchdowns, and 450 plus rushing yards in a season. Justin Herbert is currently on pace for all three.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. It's a very like most stats, it's cherry picked, but it is very interesting to see how good this offense can be and how good Justin Herbert has been. I think just kind of like it just reminds you all 3 of these guys are startable because
Yeah.
all of them are going to have a good floor. All of them can pop off with touchdowns. That's just what it is.
And I don't think people realize. I mean, I think people realize, but like the Cowboys and the Chargers, there's just been so much pass volume and so much pass production that I think that's why people look at like, how can Jake Ferguson be a top 3 tight end and CeeDee Lamb be the wide receiver 3 and George Pickens be a top 10 tight end or wide receiver. And then you look at all of these guys like, we're ranking Rondé Gadsden as a tight end 1 and we're ranking 3
Mhm.
wide receivers inside the top 24. There has been so much volume and so much yardage in those 2 offenses that they're supporting like 4 to 5 fantasy relevant receivers every single week, and that's why we keep ranking them like that.
Good offenses, man. They make for good fantasy points.
Who'd have
Uh,
thunk?
let's let's keep going through this tier here. Tedder McMillan, everything slowed down a little bit here. I think you're still starting him, especially against the Bills, who have been getting gashed by wide receiver ones throughout the season. So I think there's still a ceiling. Um, I'm not expecting a continued Xavier Legette breakout with as many targets as he had, and I don't think we've seen Jalen Coker jump into this role that we had all maybe hoped for or predicted. So Tedder McMillan, I still think becomes an easy start this week, Dave.
Especially with Andy Dalton.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but
that's the
like I
big
have more
change.
faith in Andy Dalton than I do in Bryce Young. And again, like I don't want to overreact to Tedero McMillan having a down game. He got the Sauce Gardner treatment last week, and even getting Trayvon Diggs a couple of weeks ago, he was still able to score 2 touchdowns. So I'm thinking just like more passing volume and production overall with Andy Dalton under center, and just trusting the talent here. I don't want to overreact to one bad week when going into last week, all the talk about Tedero McMillan was this guy is earning targets at one of the best rates in the NFL. He's looked really good. Now he's coming off of a couple touchdowns, finally broke that seal. I'm not going to overreact to one bad week when he was getting sauced.
Yeah, there's some Weymouth Jinston in the game here for Andy Dalton. You just Scooby Doo pull the mask off, and you're like, oh
Uh-huh.
my gosh, it was him the whole time.
It is fun that we see a lot of these veterans kinda just go that route, like Andy
Because they
Dalton.
don't care anymore. Like they're just
Exactly, like,
they all become Ryan
Joe
Fitzpatrick at some
Flacco is like, "What
point.
are you gonna do? Fire me? Like,
Bench
I get
me.
to go home to my family and my super huge house, my hundreds of millions of dollars? Oh."
Polish my Super Bowl MVP trophy. Wah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. A couple other guys on here. Zay Flowers. It'll be good to have Lamar back. I think that's an easy start.
Which we're not
Chicago.
100% sure about. I know we've been talking about Lamar Jackson like he's coming back. It doesn't sound completely like a given at this point. We hope he'll be back, but, kind of bracing for him to maybe not be as well. Also, did you see the video of him getting late night food at, like, 12:30? Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Street
yeah.
food, man. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, Lamar? Like,
Cracks
come
me up, man.
on.
Like, these guys,
Come on, bro. He's got the diet of a 12-year-old with an Uber Eats gift card.
I mean, that was
Like,
DK Metcalf, the same thing. DK Metcalf's like, "I just live on, like, coffee and Sour Patch Kids."
ah, man. So, looking at some reports, this take it as what we will.
Yeah, we
This
don't have a
is
clear picture yet.
we don't. This is um from Samuel Njoku, who is one of the hosts of the Ravens Talk pod, said spoke to a few people who were at practice on Wednesday that didn't notice any limp or favoring of the leg for Lamar Jackson. Considering he hasn't practiced in 3 weeks and that he has 2 games in 5 days, it doesn't surprise me that they're being careful with Lamar Jackson here. So
Yeah.
it is still very much possible that he does not play this week, but we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that, what the news
Yeah.
is going to be.
I know a lot of
But
people
we're
covering the Bears beat are just saying that, Lamar should take another week to rest up. Really just come back
yeah.
100% next week. There's no reason to rush it.
Yeah, we're ranking him. We're ranking Zay Flowers, that is, as if Lamar is back, right? Like I
Right.
think that's got to be our rule when ranking. Rank a player as if they're healthy. Rank a player as if they have all their resources. If they
I
don't,
will say
we
if
adjust later in the
Cooper
week.
Rush, yeah, if we find out Cooper Rush is starting again, Zay Flowers right now, I've got him as my wide receiver 23, and he'll fall to like wide receiver 30 if Cooper Rush is out there. Like the target volume will still be there, but we talked about this a lot yesterday on the show that like when Cooper Rush is out there, they're putting 8 guys in the box. You can't do that against Lamar Jackson. So it's just a very, very different way that defenses are playing these teams. So I'll have a little bit of pause if Cooper Rush is starting again.
I've got Zay Flowers in my top 12 if Lamar Jackson is healthy. If he's
Yeah.
not, it's we're doing a violent swing out of the top
Mhm.
12 outside of the top 25. Like it is an easy drop down the rankings there. George Pickens is interesting. I think still a start for anyone that maybe is worried about the pendulum swing over there in Dallas going up against the Broncos this week. CeeDee Lamb might get a little bit of the Pat Surtain treatment, but if he's going to be playing out of a slot, there's a potential George Pickens gets the Pat Surtain
Right.
treatment, Dave. So how nervous are you with George Pickens?
I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I mean, like he's playing really good ball this year, but I think that what we saw over the first, well, not the first, but that 4 or 5 week stretch with CD Lamb, that's not going to keep happening. Kind of look at him in like a very similar light to Quentin Johnston now, where he's like
Yeah.
a big play guy. Like the volume probably won't be there, but he can always have these big plays. I mean, like, I'm just begging George Pickens to have, like, one normal catch. Like, every single catch that he makes is some, like, acrobatic catch, contested coverage, double coverage, like, laying out for balls, and he keeps doing it, but it felt like that was every one of his catches last week, but, yeah, even that, like, CeeDee Lamb still didn't look 100%, but immediately came back to lead the team in targets, lead the team in receptions. We expect that to be the case, and I think that pushes George Pickens from this, like, surefire top 10 guy to more of a boom bust, touchdown dependent wide receiver too, which is kind of how we were looking at him in the preseason.
George Pickens is just that Babadook meme where the mom is yelling to her kid in the back seat, "Why can't you be normal?" And the kid just responds, "Ah!"
Pre-show, we were
That's
talking about
George
like some
Pickens.
really bad horror movies that we've watched recently.
Mhm.
Babadook is one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. If anybody's looking for spooky October, wants to see a good scary movie, Babadook is up there as one of the best ones.
Yeah, yeah, that's a genuinely scary movie. I'm watching it right now. Watching it one
Mm.
and two in preparation for the new show coming out. Welcome to Derry. We got a 9-year-old in our house that's watching it. He's struggling through it. He's
Yeah.
struggling through it, but he wants to be brave. All right, let's finish up this tier here. Jalen Waddle. gross.
Hmm.
I want to be excited. There's the target volume and everything. I want to say that last week was the outlier, but this week he's got AJ Terrell on him. Falcons defense has been
So
weirdly
good.
very good against passing attacks. Like there's just teams are not really able to pass very well. We saw like Kendrick Bourne got stifled last week. Not that that's not saying like Justin Jefferson got stifled last week. I'm just saying he had a week after week of good performance. The Niners overall sort of struggled with their passing attack, and everything is just trending in the wrong direction for Miami here. That I do get worried about Jalen Waddle.
Have you ordered your Quinn Ewers jersey yet? Are you on that
Why? So
bandwagon?
I can cut that with scissors in a couple of weeks? No thanks. I'm
Oh
waiting
my
for my
god.
Fernando Mendoza or Dante
There you
Moore
go.
jersey next year.
There you go. Yeah, that's a little bit more like it. Yeah, I mean, Waddle is so talented, and he's healthy right now. Like Tyreek Hill is out of the picture. This should have been the year. Like every year, there's just something that inhibits Jalen Waddle from breaking out. Like it is so frustrating. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league, and like it seems like this should be the year that he puts it all together and ascends into being that surefire wide receiver one. And now we've just got Tua turning into a pumpkin. So yeah, I mean, starting him as a wide receiver too, but like not feeling good about it.
Pumpkin is a weird way to pronounce. Never mind. I'm not going to say that into a microphone.
A
Let's
pumpkin.
go to the let's go to the next tier. Tier number 4 here. Wide receivers 21 through 28. At 21, we got Devontae Smith coming off a really big game. Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, Romeo Dobbs, Jordan Addison, Wandale Robinson, Jawan Jennings. Dave, who sticks out to you most from this tier?
I think Xavier Worthy is probably the guy that I want to talk about because we still haven't really seen like Xavier Worthy. You know, he's been in the league for a year and a half now. This is going to be what the fourth, maybe fifth game that he has played with Rashi Rice. And Xavier
Mm-hmm.
Worthy's career has been so weird because early in the year, we saw Rashi Rice very clearly the wide receiver one last year. After he got hurt, they kind of tried putting Juju Smith-Schuster and other players into the Rashi Rice role, and then about halfway through the year, they just said, you know, Xavier Worthy has to be in that Rashi Rice role. And there was a ton of volume going his way, but he was so horribly inefficient with that volume. He didn't even have his first 100-yard game until the Super Bowl, which like came on a garbage time throw from Patrick Mahomes. This year, we saw him back in that Rashi Rice role, immediately gets knocked out by Travis Kelce. And now I don't know what to expect from Xavier Worthy. Are we going to see him in that short area of the field role where he can create after the catch, or are we going to see what he did early in his rookie season, which is like just being that downfield guy? What we do know with absolute certainty is that Rashi Rice is going to be the wide receiver one here. Like, I don't
Yep.
think that there's going to be like a 50-50 split. So that does make me worry that Xavier Worthy goes from this guy that we were looking at as a high end volume based wide receiver too. I do wonder now if he is kind of in this like Jameson Williams type of role where there isn't going to be a lot of volume and you're hoping that he can crack a big play. And if he doesn't, he's a huge liability in your lineup because I think all of that volume that he was getting in the short area of the field, the end arounds, the jet sweeps, the slants, the screens, I worry that all of that now goes to Rashi Rice, and there's just going to be 4 to 6 targets per game for Xavier Worthy. And if he can make something happen, great. And if he doesn't, you're getting 3, 4 points in your lineup.
That's what it is. He's a wide receiver 3 every week. Low floor, very high ceiling off a big play. You mentioned all the stuff about Rishi Rice. What worries me more is that so much of what Xavier Worthy has been doing is also being taken by Hollywood Brown, whose target share did not
Right.
go down in this game. Like he maintained the same target share as Xavier Worthy. Um, Everyone not named Rasheed Rice looks like an afterthought. And I don't want to over course correct here off of one game, but
Of course, right.
this has been the career we have seen when Rasheed Rice is on the field. He is the primary target, and it nerfs Travis Kelce and every other pass catcher on this team. It's fair to assume that is kind of the trend we're going to continue to see, and especially going up against Washington here, where if it's the Chiefs versus Marcus Mariota and no Terry McLaurin and potentially no Debo Samuel and a running game that could get stifled, like just this could just be a blowout. We're not going to see a whole lot of passing or a lot of big play opportunity for Worthy. So it does worry me a little bit as well.
And you know, we could spend a little bit more time on this because I think that it's probably one of the most like impactful things to talk about here. But I know you and I both had like some major concerns about Xavier Worthy coming out of college,
Mm-hmm.
that he was kind of like a one-trick pony. And you know, I said it over the offseason that like if you look at what Xavier Worthy did last year, it was very similar to Wan'Dale Robinson, and, like, people don't wanna hear that because, like, it's Xavier Worthy, and he's on the Chiefs, and he was the wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs, but he was so bad with the volume last year. Like, there were games where they were thrusting, like, 15 targets on him, and he couldn't even crack 100 yards, and now I do wonder if, like, we've seen Hollywood Brown has been a very good, versatile, well-rounded receiver throughout his entire career. The only thing that has really impeded him has been injuries, like, one injury after another, and now with him healthy, and now with Rashee Rice back and healthy, like, is Xavier Worthy the third option in this passing attack? Maybe even like Xavier Worthy is just getting as many targets per game as Travis Kelce and has the ability to rip off bigger plays. But I don't want to go full doomsday on Xavier Worthy here, but like we're already starting to knock him down the rankings after the first game with Rashee Rice. But a month from now, we might be looking at Xavier Worthy as like a totally bust low end wide receiver 3, and I think it's worth having the discussion now in case it gets there, and we could be wrong. Maybe his volume bounces back this week, but there is a dangerous season long floor here with Worthy that I don't think a lot of people are talking about yet.
I've got Xavier Worthy as my wide receiver 29 this week with teams on bye
Yeah,
and with lots of receivers injured. I think that tells you everything you need to know about how I feel. Is I don't want to have to start him. I'm starting DJ Moore, Romeo Doubs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs, all of
yeah,
these guys over
yeah,
Xavier Worthy, no problem.
yeah.
All
I
right,
think
that's
Dobbs
enough.
is the other interesting guy in this tier, just like really quickly. Like we
That's
talked
who I
about
was
it
going to go to.
earlier this week. Yeah. And I saw Matt Harmon just today. Like we were talking about this a lot last week. And I saw Matt Harmon was just talking about how he was digging into the film and how much better his footwork has gotten and how he's like releasing better and he's getting open quicker. And that's something that we have been talking about for the last few weeks. Like he is developing into a wide receiver 1 right before our eyes. And I don't think people are really picking it up yet. Like they see that 3 touchdown game and think that that's really, buoying his fantasy production. And it certainly is. But even outside of that 3 touchdown game, like he is operating as the team's number 1 weapon.
And this is a good matchup too, going up against
Yep.
Pittsburgh, who
Yep.
Jalen Ramsey has been hit or miss. Joey Porter Jr. has been playing more in the slot, and Darius Slay has not been his normal self that we've seen from years past. So Steelers are beatable on the outside here. Fourth best matchup for wide receivers this week. Romeo Doubs 8+ targets in 3 straight games. The air yard share continues to stay very high. This
Still
is
available in 33% of leagues.
nuts,
Like this guy's
nuts,
he's a wide receiver
nuts.
2 on the year, and like you could still in 1 in 3 leagues. And I'm looking in deep leagues too on Sleeper. I know it changes a little bit. Like I'm looking in our 20 slot fantasy league. It's showing that he's still available in 33% of leagues. That's crazy to me.
That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Yeah, Romeo Doubs not only needs to be rostered, but I think he needs to be started this week. He's our
Yep.
wide receiver 24 on our consensus rankings here. T. Higgins, I think, is back to form with Joe Flacco, and I don't want to, once again, I don't
Shame
want
on
to
me
over
for doubting
course
him
correct.
last week too. I'm sorry to anybody that took my advice and benched T Higgins last week. I'm a fool. I'm sorry. I'm wrong often. I apologize.
He got himself his touchdown, man. I think that's the
Did.
thing is like there's going to be the touchdown upside, but then I think you're also going to have the target floor here with Joe Flacco. Um, T. Higgins up against the Jets corner, the number 2 corner. It's
I don't know who that is off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I'm not gonna lie. They've had injuries, like they lost Michael Carter II, who was mostly their slot guy. Sauce is going to be on Jamar Chase, which that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. But don't be surprised if we get a potential another T Higgins 10 target game like we did in the previous week. So, um,
Brandon Stevens.
okay, no, Brandon Stevens not bad. Brandon Stevens not bad, but T Higgins, it's still a matchup. It's still
Yeah.
a mismatch there. Um, Dave, the final guys that we have in this tier here: Jordan Addison, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jawan Jennings. I think we know what Wandale is. I think we know what Jordan Addison is. Is we're going to have the blow up game, or it's just the volatile. It's the same volatility that we see from a Jameson Williams and a Xavier Worthy, where we can see massive blow up games, or like the no show games. That's who Jordan Addison has been through his career. I don't think that's a new thing.
Yeah. I mean, he just keeps getting in his own way. That's like the biggest problem with Jordan Addison, unfortunately. Do feel okay starting him as a wide receiver too when Carson Wentz is starting. We saw
Carson Wentz likes him.
he does. Yeah. I mean, we've
26
seen
targets
him.
in 3 weeks. It's nice.
Yeah. I think Jennings is probably one of the most interesting players here
That's
because
who I
like
wanted to get to.
he has been so banged up this year. Like, the Black Knight from Monty Python, just like, oh, it's only a
Put the
flesh wound
flesh
as he's out here, like just
wound.
in a head to toe body cast. he's been really, really banged up, and because of that, the production hasn't been there. But we saw last week pulled 7 targets. Started to look a little bit better than he did in that game against Tampa Bay, where he was just kind of like a decoy. So I do wonder now. I mean, it seems like we're getting another Mac Jones start potentially, but I think that if Juwan Jennings is 100%, he is going to jump ahead of Kendrick Bourne and play as that number one guy, the guy who's running those deep posts, those in breaking routes that are so valuable in this offense. So Jennings, I think we're both being a little bit cautious just because we haven't really seen anything from him this year, but seems like he's starting to trend in a healthier direction. And Houston's defense has, been pretty good this year, but still, we just see the Shanahan offense is like predicated on getting the ball to that X receiver. And if that's the role that Juwan Jennings is playing, he's a guy that like we're ranking as a wide receiver 3, but could easily finish as a wide receiver 1 this week.
So my fear comes from a couple things. Could Ricky Pearsall play this week? Where do we get him? It's trending towards no,
Right.
but
I
it,
don't know if you ranked him or not. I didn't. I'm
I didn't
still
either
operating under the
because
assumption
it's
that he's out.
so the pendulum is so far to no
Right.
this week. But Jawan Jennings, like you mentioned, they do want to get the X involved, but it's got the Derek Stingley matchup this week. Like, we're going to talk about Jamar going up against Sauce. Like, we got to talk about Jawan Jennings. Could get absolutely blanketed here by Derek Stingley, and then we're looking at a George Kittle blow up game, right? Like, I'm
Right.
sure there's going to be some course correction there after last week not getting the usage that we wanted to see. Kendrick Bourne could go back to being involved here. I just, this is one of those, like I mentioned, the Tampa Bay New Orleans game, the San Francisco Houston game could get really ugly,
Okay.
where you can get 2 George Kittle touchdowns, 2 Christian McCaffrey touchdowns, and then they're up, 35-0. I know that's not the math, guys, but like 35-0 at halftime. And they're just like, okay, we don't need to pass anymore. Let's get Brian Robinson Jr. in here and just salt the clock away. So that's the
For what
only
it's
thing that worries me and has Jawan lower for me.
for what it's worth, Juwan Jennings did log a full practice yesterday on Wednesday. So that's a good sign. Like if he's opening up the week as a full participant at practice, that probably means that he won't be very limited. And I think
I'm
that's
not
like
worried about
every
the
single
health.
week. Oh, all right.
It's
That
everything
was
else.
my major concern was health. I think if Juwan
he's
Jennings,
he's been playing relatively fine even with all the injuries, right? Like where I get worried, it's all the other factors in this. It's game script, it's matchup against Stingley, it's getting George Kittle back more involved, things like that.
that's what I want to see is Kittle more involved. This has been, yeah, last
We
week
need it.
was not fun to watch, but yeah, Kittle at
His
100%.
his response was great. He's like,
Yeah.
don't talk to me about it. Talk to Kyle Shanahan. I'm sorry to all my fantasy managers.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah,
response.
he's like, "I'm
What a
sorry to
guy.
everyone who bet on me and everybody who owns me in fantasy." That was good. I like when
What a
people are
guy.
self-aware.
Yep, yep. So the football players being meta and just like understanding what world they're in is just beautiful. It's beautiful to me.
Yeah. Terry
Final
Rozier.
tier.
Sorry.
Why do you got to do that? Why do you got to do that, man? The sports vibes in Miami
Oh,
have never been worse.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've lived through some stuff, man. I've seen some things. We are a long way away from LeBron on the Heat, the Marlins winning a championship. The Dolphins have never been good, except for 1972 and Dan Marino, and I was not a fan. All right, final tier. Wide receivers 29 through 37. 29, Khalil Shakir. 30, Matthew Golden. 31, Deebo Samuel. 32, DJ Moore. 33, Rashid Shaheed. 34, Kendrick Bourne. 35, Keon Coleman. 36, Tez Johnson. 37, Josh Downs. And Dave, I will say this: if Deebo Samuel is healthy, I think we end up, we kind of broke our rule here. Like he probably should be a lot higher in this ranking. I think there's the combination of the Marcus Mariota, the concerns with the offense, the concerns with Deebo Samuel's injury. But if he's healthy and we get the full, like, ready to go this week, where are you putting Deebo Samuel in the rankings?
I mean,
Is it about the same?
he needs to log like if he logs full practices to close out the week and we know he is like absolutely 100% healthy, I'll move him up into like the middling wide receiver 2 range. Like I'd probably put him right behind Stephon Diggs and ahead of Romeo Dubs. But the problem is he's not healthy. Like he's dealing with
Mm-hmm.
multiple injuries right now, and this is something that we know so well about Debo Samuel. We've talked about this for years. Adam Harstead has pulled the data to back it up. When Debo Samuel is healthy, he is a wide receiver 1. When he is banged up, he's a wide receiver 4. It's just like that simple. And I think right now he's been dealing with these injuries. So much of what he does is just brute athleticism, like just running through defenders and doing that sort of thing. And when he's limited, it takes that ability from him, especially you couple that with Jaden Daniels being out and the Marcus Mariota start here. I'm definitely tempering expectations. I mean, like I said, if he's able to log back-to-back full practices to close out the week, I'll feel a little bit better and I'll bump him up. But right now, I'm looking at him as kind of a risky wide receiver 3.
Couple of other guys that can be risky but fun wide receiver threes here. Matthew Golden with a big play, especially if he's working on the outside. We mentioned already Pittsburgh's defense being susceptible. I think this could be a really fun game for the Packers receivers. DJ Moore, Dave, you have him ranked a little bit lower than I do. I already have him ranked pretty low, wide receiver 28, but you've got him at wide receiver 36. Like you're done with DJ Moore. Is this a Bears thing? Is this a DJ Moore thing? Is this a matchup thing? Why so low for you?
And again, I'm ranking as if they aren't playing with Lamar Jackson. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, we have
The
seen
game's
over the last couple of weeks, the Bears are really trying their best to establish the run, and they're doing it well. That interior offensive line looks fantastic. I think they want to run the ball as much as they can. And DJ Moore, it feels like he always gets these like pity targets late in the game, like where it's just like the fourth quarter, and they're like, oh, let's throw 4 balls to DJ Moore, so like he doesn't get upset at or at the end of this game. And that's not something I want to bank on a week in and week out basis. Like the production really hasn't been there for DJ Moore so far this year. Every once in a while, we'll see that like weird game where he's a little bit more involved, but he's been turning in wide receiver 3 value this year. So I'm just treating him like a wide receiver 3.
Let's go to Keon Coleman. And I bring up this name because he started off the season hot, went missing, and has not really had anything sort of go his way. We saw a couple signs. It's like a sign of life recently, but Keon Coleman, is this a player that you want to have in your starting lineup right now, Dave? Because so this is weird, and this just kind of shows you guys how rankings go. So you have him ahead of Tez Johnson. I have him one spot behind Tez Johnson, and I would probably think that there's a big gap for me between Tez Johnson and Keon Coleman, but they're right after the other.
Yeah, you're gonna hate
how do
me.
you?
I tweaked my rankings this morning, and I moved. That's the one flip that I made. I've
Why do I
literally
keep finding them?
Tez Johnson up one spot and Keon Coleman
Okay.
down one spot is a tweak that I made this morning because I was just kind of looking at it and I'm like, that's silly. Like, Tez
Yeah.
Johnson, the ceiling is so much higher. And I think that the Bills are happiest with Dalton Kincaid kind of being that
Hmm.
number one
And
weapon.
he's back
And
now too.
he's back. He seems relatively healthy. And we've just seen like he has made the big plays again. Like I'm going to mention something that Jeff Bell says. He is a Bills fan, so he knows more about this team than I do. And he's getting so frustrated because like he's like Keon Coleman just runs one route. Like he just runs outside the numbers, like just runs that 9 route and gets a handful of targets every single game. But like there's just no creative usage there. It feels like Joe Brady just keeps doing the same thing every single play. Like there's just no creativity in this offense whatsoever. And I think that's the fear with Keon Coleman is like you're hoping he can come down with a touchdown. And if he's not scoring a touchdown, there just hasn't been enough volume or yardage there to really give him any sort of floor. So that's kind of every pass catcher in this Bills offense right now. Like you're hoping they can find pay dirt because Josh Allen is just spreading the ball around to so many people.
Keon Coleman is on that Quentin Johnston track right now, where maybe we see the third year breakout at some point with
Hopefully,
some
yeah.
different usage or something, or more weapons that allows him to do something. But also going up against Carolina this week, where Keon Coleman lines up on the outside, he's going to be faced up against J.C. Horn, which has just been a death
Right.
sentence for wide receivers this year. So this is one of these where, like, as I was doing my rankings, I was like, well, I guess you got to put the Bills wide receiver 1 somewhere.
But is he
Technically,
even the wide receiver
he's not.
one?
No, Khalil
Yeah.
Shakir is who I have ahead of him. But
Right.
more so like the X, right? You've got to have him somewhere. And then I started looking around. I'm like, yeah, he's next to, in my rankings, he's next to Jerry Jeudy and Alec Iomanner and a bunch of other players who are technically the X for their team and just not very good right now for fantasy. So
It's weird.
I
Bills
would,
just aren't pushing the ball downfield this year. It's
well,
it's really, really weird. That's been the best part of Josh Allen's game his entire career. I was just seeing the other day over the last 3 years, he has had 26 touchdowns with 20 plus air yards. He has thrown one of those this year through 7 games. Like there just isn't that threat of the deep ball anymore. And I don't get it. And you'd think like if they aren't pushing the ball deep downfield, that should be great news for Khalil Shakir. Like he should be that Amon-Ra St. Brown type of player, just like gobbling up 15 targets per game across the middle of the field. But he's not doing that either. It's just like they're winning game. They've lost a couple of games, but for the most part, they're winning and like they are still a good team, but at the same time, their offense feels a little bit broken.
Well, I mean, adding in a guy like Josh Palmer too sort of has the Hollywood Brown effect, where it's just like one more guy who's not
Yeah. Yeah.
like changing the offense, but he's taking enough from other players. Where you're just like, okay, he exists, he's there as well. Um, I wanted to look it up. I wasn't sure, but I do feel like last time I was looking, James Cook is getting more work in the receiving game than he has
Less work
previously.
in the receiving
Less.
game.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Because
That's
there
it.
was something that stood out where I was just like, it's weird that the receivers aren't getting more with James Cook not
And
getting as
that
many catches.
Yeah, and that was another, like, through the first 3 weeks of the season, we were like, "James Cook, one of the best picks you could make in fantasy. This guy's a
Mhm.
workhorse on a good offense." And then 3 weeks ago, they just decided like, "Oh, Ray Davis is gonna be our passing down back now." It's like, "Wait, what? Why?" Like, James Cook has been great at this, and we like Ray Davis, don't get me wrong, but, like, them taking James Cook off the field on passing downs has been very bad for his fantasy production.
Last guy to talk about here, or maybe last guy, but Tez Johnson. We talked about him a lot in the waiver wire show.
Mhm.
And what I want to say is this is yes, this could be an ugly game with the Bucks and the Saints, but I'm still expecting Tez Johnson to come away from this game with at least 5 targets, probably in the 6 to 7 target range. Get a couple of those same screens that he got last week. Even if game script doesn't allow for a big passing game, this is, I mean, this could still be a very startable play. That's why you go and get him on waivers, and that's going to be one of those annoying intangible things that I'll say often through fantasy football is if you go and spend money on the guy on your waiver wire with your fab, and then you don't start him in what could still be a good matchup where he doesn't have Mike Evans, doesn't have Chris Godwin. Why did you get the player? Right? Like this is why you did it. So you should be starting him as a wide receiver 3 flex play this week.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's as simple as that, and, we could nitpick so many things with Tez Johnson if we wanted to, but, like, why?
He should eat
Tez
more.
Johnson's fun, and, like, we've seen, like, Baker Mayfield last year, like, just turn Jalen McMillan into a wide receiver one over the second half of the season, like, he is at that point in his career, he is elevating the pass catchers around him. Tez Johnson, he's just a fun player, like, he made so many big plays at Oregon when he gets the ball in his hand, and we saw that last week, like, hurdling over a defender to pick up the first down and then, like, pinballing his way through the rest of the defense to score a touchdown. He can do really fun things like that, and he is probably going to be number 2 or number 3 if you want to factor in K. Dotton, but it's going to be Ibuka, K. Dotton's going to get his, and then Tez Johnson always has that big play upside.
Tez Johnson's stat sheet says he's 165 pounds, and I do not believe that. He's like 145. But you need to come over here. Come meet my mother-in-law. Okay, Guatemalans and Colombians and Cubans, we are carb machines. This is what we do. We're gonna get you gain a little more weight. We'll get you to the real
So
165.
I heard a theory, and this makes a lot of sense, that he was worried about his weight being so low that it wouldn't get him drafted, that he beefed up for the combine a little bit so he
And
could
it made
get
him
an extra
slower.
10 pounds on the scale. And then that's what impacted his speed when he came out and ran the slow 40 time. So it was kind of like, he just shot himself in the foot, like, hey, I got an extra 10 pounds on
Why
me.
would you
But
not
then,
do what every other player does, which is bulk up for the combine, do your weight,
and
say
then
your
run on the
ankle
pro
hurts,
day,
and then run at the pro day, and you'll be 165, you'll run a 4.2 at your pro day, and now you're a third round pick. Like
which is
what?
what Cam Scadaboo did. He just still ran a 4.6 at his pro day. But yeah, I think that that's
Uh,
kind of what happened with Tez is that he, wanted to say like, "Look, I'm big, I'm strong," and then ran slow. And I think the
we were like,
reality
you're
is,
still small. Yeah,
yeah, he probably is playing closer to like 148, 150 pounds, but now he's got that
insane,
speed and burst back that we clearly saw on the Oregon film.
insane. Yeah, big fan of Tez Johnson. Dave, once again, we did it. We went through over
We did it.
70 players here, running backs and wide receivers, all the best matchups for this week, the players you must start. As always, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening all the way through. We'll see you again on Monday for the week 9 waiver wire show. Wow, that's weird to say. The season is going fast, man. But we will be back. And as always, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening all the way through. Please take a second to like this video, comment down below with your thoughts, leave a review on Apple or Spotify. For myself, for Dave, we'll see you next time. Adios.